Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 22nd day of May 2022. I'm David Percy, and our first graphic today showing the breakup map there and the noaa River showing a bigger area of some open water there, but still a lot of ice on the lower stretch and kind of a mixture there on the Kobuk River. And then flood warning now on the Buckland River. Otherwise, not a lot of change elsewhere. Still have the watches there in the lower Yukon River areas. Fire danger, lost the extreme areas we had over south central Alaska yesterday, but fire danger increased over the Yukon Flats, upper Yukon Porcupine River areas there, getting into the high fire danger zone, as well as the central interior extending back down toward the mid-Yukon River Valley. Then Yukon Delta, areas of high fire danger, improved over the Kuskokwim Delta today. And Bristol Bay, northeast Bristol Bay, up in toward the southern Kuskokwim Valley, some areas of high fire danger. And of course, Kenai Peninsula, western Kenai Peninsula, quite dry up into the Anchorage-Palmer area and southern Susitna Valley. And then that little area there in the Copper River Basin there, Gulkana and Glen Allen, kind of a area of high fire danger there as well. And on the warning chart here, we've got a flood warning out currently there for the for an ice jam on the Buckland River, and flooding is now occurring in Buckland due to that ice jam, and that flood warning is out through Monday afternoon. Otherwise, flood advisory for the Chena River in the greater Fairbanks area, and that's out into Monday as well. And then the Copper River Basin, that's flood advisory also for the northern Copper River Basin Monday, or through Monday, tomorrow, for the Moose Creek and Glen Allen and the Gulkana River, around, and also around Lake Louise. So that flood advisory continues through tomorrow at least, or due to end, or it'll kick it out longer. And then the flood watch for the, let's see, for an ice jam on the Buckland, or already got that one. Okay, flood watch for the Yukon River, again, stays out from Grayling to Russian Mission. That's out until into Monday as well, kind of extended it from what it was yesterday. And then a flood watch out until midday Monday for the Salsa River for possible flooding there. That's the eastern interior areas. And going to satellite imagery, before I get too more mixed up than I was on those, you can see a lot of clear skies. We had a band of moisture swing eastward, and that brought a little bit of shower activity to the southern Kenai Peninsula area. Overnight, let's see, Ninilchik picked up about 0.02 of an inch, some light shower activity. Homer Soldovia about 1/100 of an inch, and otherwise heavier amounts down where the main low center is. Kodiak picked up 0.4 of an inch at the state airport there. Then kind of a break came through earlier today, but that band approaching the main frontal boundary coming back in, so look for the rain. If it hasn't started already, it will at any time and continue off and on throughout the night tonight. Also a band of moisture pushing into the southern panhandle, thickening up the clouds, thickening and lowering through the afternoon. Now bring some rain into the area tonight and spread northward late tonight and into tomorrow. Otherwise, another sunny, warm day over the clearing that came in behind that cloud feature, moving westward across southern Alaska. Temperatures back into the 60s to lower 70s, Copper River Basin, Kenai Peninsula, as well as up in the interior, some areas reaching the mid-70s in the sunnier locations there. But then you get more clouds up toward the Yukon Flats area. And winds a little gusty through the passes of the Brooks Range, especially the western Brooks Range, gusting as high as 40 miles an hour through the passes there. Otherwise, Cape Newnham at a peak wind gust, let's see, of about 50 miles or 40 miles an hour, excuse me. or actually no, 52 miles an hour from the east-northeast at Cape Newenham. That was the strongest wind gust reported in the state. Cold Bay southeast at about 40 miles an hour, though the gradient doesn't really support it. Those are two of the normally windier areas, and that pattern usually results in the strongest winds that occur at Cold Bay, while everyone else has much lighter winds. And again, rain poised to move back into Kodiak Island, and possible showers shifting westward across the border there into the area from Eagle down to possibly as far south as Tok, but I don't think it quite made it. And then rain poised to move into the Panhandle. Had some flurries all along the Arctic coast today with low clouds and fog, about 1/100 of an inch of water equivalent reported, Kaktovik, and also at Point Lay. Point Lay gusting to 30 miles an hour to the east-northeast, temperatures in the upper 20s with light snow the entire day. Not too indicative of late May, but it does occur at times in some years. And for tonight, that's flurry condition will end up there in the Arctic coast. Winds will become light across the entire coastline under high pressure. Even the winds through the passes of the Brooks Range will diminish. And risk of some shower activity there in the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, maybe the eastern Alaska Range, but kind of a scattered to widely scattered nature. Otherwise dry southern Alaska, variably cloudy, rain, periods of light rain, fog and drizzle, Kodiak Island. That'll extend eastward across the Gulf, staying south of the North Gulf Coast, but spread into the Panhandle. Look for light rain to spread northward tonight from south to north into the northern part of the southeast coast. Probably won't make it to Haines or Skagway. Juneau probably more likely. And stays unsettled out over the Aleutians with some shower activity there, but high pressure over the northern Bering Sea, light winds, low clouds and fog that extend right up into the Chukchi Sea. And for Monday, high pressure dominates the Bering Sea and even the Aleutians, light winds, low clouds, fog, anywhere out in that area. Pretty widespread through the Bering Strait, up along the Arctic coast. Another sunny, warm day, interior Alaska, northern Kuskokwim Valley, especially along the Yukon rivers right up into the North Slope with low clouds and fog along the Arctic coast, keeping it a little cooler there. Showers Kodiak Island becoming scattered with partial clearing, especially in the afternoon. Showers tending to end over the southern Panhandle, but stays pretty showery or rainy and cloudy, and cooler for the North Gulf Coast. And look for more clouds and better chance for showers, Prince William Sound, even the Kenai Peninsula up into the eastern Alaska Range. So risk of showers over the western Alaska Range. And for Tuesday, even cloudier and a little cooler southern Alaska, especially from the Alaska Range eastward. The biggest chance of precipitation increase occurs over the Copper River Basin into the Alaska Range there. Kenai Peninsula, look for better chance of showers in the afternoon over mountainous terrain. And the Panhandle, mostly cloudy, scattered showers, and also cloudy skies and a few showers around Kodiak Island in the Alaska Peninsula. High pressure continues to dominate the Bering Sea for a continued light wind pattern out there with dry conditions from the Aleutians right up into the Chukchi Sea as well as the northern interior. And for lows tonight, teens and 20s from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, south of the mountains, 30s to lower 40s, but upper 40s to near 50 for the lower Yukon River Valley out to the deltas, but along the coast in the upper 30s, and 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. Upper 30s to mid 40s, southern Alaska, south central Alaska, and in the 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow in the 50s for the southeast coast, and 60s, upper 50s toward Homer, but mid to upper 60s to Sitna Valley, and upper 50s for the Copper River Basin, 65 to 70 for the western interior there, and lower 60s now for the Tanana Valley, and lower to mid 50s there for the upper Tanana Valley to Chokyitzik, and lower 30s for the Arctic coast. Lows the following morning, 20 to 25 for the Arctic coast North Slope, 25 to 30 for the Brooks Range, and back down into the lower to mid 30s for the central interior, and down to 26 forecast low for Eagle for Tuesday morning. Cooler air coming in from the northeast there, but staying in the mid to upper 40s over the southwest part of the state, lower to mid 40s Bristol Bay, followed by highs, again 65 to 70 over the western interior areas, upper 50s Bristol Bay, cooler all across southern Alaska in the 50s, 50s for the Panhandle, and mid 60s call up for the Fairbanks area up into the upper Yukon Valley, lower to mid 30s for the Arctic coast, and in the 40s out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic, IFR, Arctic coast and the central north slope. Brooks Range on down to Bristol Bay, Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Good VFR through the interior. Some marginal VFR there over the Wrangell Mountains up to the eastern Alaska Range and just to the north. Otherwise, lower conditions for the southeast coast, IFR along the north coast, eastern border, and marginal VFR elsewhere. Marginal VFR, southern Kodiak Island, and IFR, a band there from the Alaska Peninsula across the Pribilofs up to St. Matthew Island, and from Etka Island westward to Kiska, and a narrow band of IFR there through the Bering Strait, Diomede Island, up off the northwest coast, and then cutting back in across the Arctic coast. And for the afternoon, we've got VFR, central eastern Arctic coast, all the north slope right on down into Cook Inlet and the Bristol Bay area and Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR pushing northward all the way to Fognak Island from Kodiak and eastern North Gulf Coast. IFR there just northeast of Valdez, Cordova, Yakutat. Marginal VFR for the Panhandle, some IFR toward the Canadian border. And VFR there for the Seward Peninsula until you get out toward Wales and Tin City, then it's marginal. Marginal VFR, Western Arctic Coast. IFR, St. Matthew Island, the Pribilofs. And now marginal VFR for the Aleutians. And for the Tuesday morning time frame, VFR continues over much of interior Alaska. Still some marginal VFR up into Prince William Sound. And now across the Kenai Peninsula, Resurrection Bay, Seward, on up into probably cutting off right around, looks like Cooper Landing or so, and then into Turnagain Arm, possibly as far west as Bird Point or so, into the Chugach Mountains, marginal VFR, Mananuska Valley, but the Susitna Valley, westward to the southwest coast, Nunivak Island, VFR, IFR into Bristol Bay, and the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, and the central Bering Sea to the western Seward or St. Lawrence Island area, and some IFR there in the central Arctic coast. For the afternoon, IFR central Arctic coast, marginal VFR across the north slope into the Brooks Range, south of the mountains there, VFR all the way down. And now we've got marginal VFR creeping northward into central Cook Inlet, and the Susitna Valley staying VFR, as well as the Copper River Basin. Mananuska Valley getting kind of marginal there. Kenai Peninsula, marginal VFR, eastward there across Prince William Sound to Yakutat, Panhandle VFR, big area of IFR out over the Bering Sea, and then some VFR breaking out, central Aleutians, Kiska, Amchitka Island area. And for the passes, Anatuvik and Adigan tomorrow, looking good. VFR flying there, Lake Clark, Merrill, and rainy, all VFR for the Western Alaska Range. Windy as well, VFR. And Isabel, VFR. Montesta, though, kind of in the marginal VFR zone. And for Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR, but watch for possible marginal VFR developing on the eastern entrance, especially into the afternoon. Chilcoot and White, IFR at times, marginal VFR at other times. And freezing levels, 4,000 feet over the southeast coast, and looks like about 6,000 feet across southern and western Alaska, dropping back to 2,000 feet up over the northeast interior from the Yukon River there on up to the eastern Arctic coast. 8,000 feet just north of the Pribilofs over the northern Bering Sea, 4,000 feet over the Aleutians. And icing, possible isolated very isolated, moderate icing there for the Panhandle. Also mixed icing, mostly light for the eastern Alaska Range, Wrangell Mountains, and just a slight chance of some icing for the Alaska Peninsula. Jet stream upper level high over the Bering Sea, and northerly flow coming around that, not all that strong, and pretty light flow aloft, the main jet well south of the state. And for the 9,000 foot wind flow chart, maybe 20 knots on the northwest coast. Easterlies 35 knots there across the Alaska Peninsula, and at 9,000 feet, pretty light winds most everywhere around the state, as well as the Bering Sea and the Gulf of Alaska. Turbulence, not a whole lot with a light wind pattern. Lincoln Glacier Bay, maybe some isolated mechanical, very isolated, light to isolated moderate chop. Same thing, Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta coast, and the Shimei and Attu area, also not too bad, pretty smooth around the state. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is Eric Stevens, our good friend from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at UAF. And thanks for joining us, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here, Dave.
And we love to hear about all the fascinating developments, new and old, and how we're using the tools here, especially around Alaska. And I've got to think that, satellite meteorology right now is a fascinating time to be involved in. If we go back to the first satellite, Tyros, back in 1960, I think is when we got some of those first pictures. Weather and meteorology probably changed that day for a whole lot of people, and it's still changing today, right?
Oh, you know it. Satellite imagery is so important, and it's getting better all the time. Yeah. Of course, never perfect, but especially for us in Alaska, where there are other data sets like radars and weather balloons are so thinly spread. Right. The satellite is the great equalizer because the satellite sees everything.
Right.
Yeah. Right. We've got one particular issue in volcanic ash detection.
That's a big deal here. Yeah.
You know it. If you fly an airplane into volcanic ash, your jet engine might just fail. And an airplane without engines is in a world of hurt. Sure. So if there's a volcano that goes off, satellite imagery is the way to track that plume of ash and to tell pilots this is where you need to not be to avoid this ash plume. And there's a phrase out there, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Okay.
Well, it turns out, what we're going to discuss today, that the difference is everything. There's a technique called channel differencing.
Okay.
That if you take one piece of the spectrum of what the satellite detects and a slightly different wavelength of that spectrum, even though those two images might look similar, magical things happen when you subtract one from the other. And they reveal information that was already there, but it was hard to find until you did that subtraction.
This sounds like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure when he's got those fancy glasses and he's flipping one up and back and forth. I mean, is this what we're talking about?
Well, let's go more highbrow and talk Michelangelo.
Oh,
so apparently Michelangelo made some amazing sculpture, and someone said, Michael, that's amazing. How did you do it? And Michelangelo's reply allegedly was, well, in that rock, the statue was already in there.
Right.
I just scraped away the unnecessary bits. In satellite meteorology, sometimes there are meteorological features that are in the data, but you can't see it until you combine or difference some of the channels.
Okay.
And we've got a case, good old Pavlov volcano goes off now and then.
Sure.
And you can observe directly a picture of the volcano. Just take it with your iPhone. You can see a volcano going
erupting.
off.
Yep.
Right. But if you want to get the broad view, we need satellite to do that. Now, there are a couple of wavelengths that we can look at. So what's a wavelength? That's the amount of space between a peak and a valley and another peak in a certain part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're going to look at 12 micron wavelength and 10.8 micron wavelength.
What is a micron?
So what's a micron? Yeah, we're getting into the geek department now. A micron is a unit of length, and it is quite tiny. We're looking at what's called long wave wavelengths.
Okay.
But it takes 25,000 of these microns to make an inch. A human blood cell is about 5 microns across. So when we're talking about 12 micron imagery as allegedly long wave, well, that's relative.
Pretty short for light.
Yeah, it's other part of the, it's just an expression for the spectrum there.
Okay.
So we can look at a 12 micron image, say a satellite image. At 12 microns, we're seeing a heat signature here, really, and the way this color enhancement works is the yellow and the red stuff is high cold clouds down here over the Gulf of Alaska into South Central. And if you were asked, where do you find the volcanic ash plume in this image?
Hey, where do you find the volcanic plume in this image?
It's hard to do. I'm not sure I could find it. If you were to look at this image and just say, show me what jumps out at you here, I'd say, well, nothing really. Well, let's look. So 12 micron doesn't help us. Let's look at 10.8 microns.
All right.
All right, look at that. It's practically the same image. So where's this volcanic ash? Can't find it at 12 microns, can't really see it at 10.8, but when we subtract one channel from the other, magically, the plume appears. The color enhancement here highlights the ash in blue.
Wow.
The information was already there, but we couldn't find it until we subtracted one channel from another.
Very interesting.
It's almost magical. Similarly, let's say you're looking for fog up on the north slope. It's kind of a foggy neighborhood.
Sure.
In 11 micron and 3.9 micron, we've got a 3.9 micron image here. It's a big fuzzy blur over Barrow. We can't see where the fog is. But the information is lurking in there waiting for us to reveal it. All we have to do is find that difference between the 11 micron and the 3.9, and then this image becomes this image, and the fog bank jumps right out, and you can see it up there at Barrow. Now, you got to choose the right tool for the job.
Sure.
Like they say, you open your toolbox, all kinds of stuff in there. What do we need for this particular task? If you want to find volcanic ash, we look at 12 and 10.8 micron, find that difference. If you want to find fog, we'll look at 11 and 3.9 micron, find that difference. It's great, different tools for different jobs. Of course, there's always caveats and gotchas, but this fog procedure, it only works at night, because when the sun comes up, it gets in the way. So every product has its strengths and limitations, and in meteorology, the challenge is using the right tool for the right job, and these are some of those tools.
And discovery is still happening, even with meteorology. The weather's been around for a long time, but the tools that are being developed to understand the meteorology is fascinating and still very new science.
It's such a young science. We've come so far. I'm getting old enough now that I can literally say that, when I was a boy, we didn't have this kind of thing. And there's new things happening all the time. New satellites will be launched in coming years that will have better instruments than ever before. It's an exciting time, and this is so helpful for Alaska because satellites help fill in the gaps between other ways of observing the weather. Satellites, the great equalizer for Alaska.
Yeah, and help so many people stay safe in so many ways every day up here in the last frontier.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, protecting lives and property.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Eric. We love to hear about this fascinating information, and boy, it just makes me want to go watch satellite pictures all day. So hopefully we're inspiring more people to do the same thing, and just be curious. It's a wonderful thing. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Coastal waters, pretty light winds along the outer coastline for the day Monday. On the south coast, southwest, 10 to 15 knots. And the north coast, south to southwest at 15 knots. Seas about 7 feet. And for Clarence Strait, inside waters, southern areas there, southeast at 10. And Stevens Passage, south breeze at 15 knots. Lincoln Island Glacier Bay looking at southeast winds up to 20 knots. Possible higher gusts in the afternoon. And then for the day Tuesday, northern and central inside waters, not bad. South to southeast breezes at 10 knots with slight seas. Clarence Strait, though, southeast 15, seas 3 feet. On the south coast, east winds 15 to 20 knots, seas around 8 feet. And the north coast, pretty light winds, all southeast at 10 knots. Prince William Sound, east winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. North Gulf Coast, east-southeast winds 15 knots, seas 8 feet. And small craft advisories for the Barren Islands due to high seas there at 8 feet, but the winds will be east at 20 knots. Kamishak Bay, southeast winds 15 knots, and Cook Inlet, southwest winds in the afternoon at 15 knots, 2 to 4 foot seas. And then lighter winds for Cook Inlet, variable in the morning, afternoon, south to southwest at 10 knots, 3 to 4 foot seas. Light variable winds for Kamishak Bay Tuesday at 10 knots. Western North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands, winds will be east at 15 knots with seas at 5 feet. And the eastern North Gulf Coast, light variable winds at 10 knots. Prince William Sound, variable to east, breezes at 10 knots with slight seas. Kodiak Island, south winds 20 knots. Shelikof Strait, small craft advisories, northeast winds at 25 knots. Otherwise, the Alaska Peninsula, light variable winds at 10 knots. And Bristol Bay, variable to northeast breeze at 10 knots. And then for Tuesday, another light variable wind day for the Alaska Peninsula right up to Sitkinak. From Cape Saratchev, Bristol Bay, light southeast breeze at 10 knots. Kodiak Island, east-northeast wind at 15 knots, seas 5 feet. For the Fox Islands tomorrow, eastern Aleutians, light variable winds at 10 knots, 3 to 6 foot seas. And for Adak and Atka, variable winds 10 to 15 knots with 5 to 6 foot seas. North winds at 20 knots for Amchitka Island. Small craft advisories from Amchitka to Shemya for north winds at 25 knots. And for Tuesday, west of Adak to Shemya, winds will be east at 15 knots. Otherwise, Adak and Atka, light variable winds at 10 knots. Unmak Island, light variable winds at 10 knots, and Unalaska Island, variable winds to northeast at 10 to 15 knots. For the southwest coast, north to northwest winds, 15 knots for the day Monday, seas only 2 to 3 feet. Northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, variable winds at 10 knots with 4 foot seas, and the Pribilofs, northeast winds at 15 knots, seas 5 feet. And for the St. Lawrence Island area, winds will be northwest at 15 knots and a light north breeze at 10 knots for Norton Sound. Tuesday, north winds 15 knots, St. Lawrence Island, and northwest 15 for the Yukon Delta coast. Kuskokwim Delta coast, southerlies at 15 knots, but back to northwest for the Pribilofs at about 15 knots. Westerly winds 15 knots for St. Matthew Island. For the Arctic coast tomorrow, southeast winds 15 knots from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, westerly breeze at 10 knots, and from Cape Thompson to Wales, light variable winds at 5 knots. And then on Tuesday, Cape Thompson or from Wales to Cape Beaufort, southerly winds 15 knots, western Arctic coast winds will be south at 10 knots, central coast west at 10 knots, and then 15 to 20 knot westerlies for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast during the day Tuesday. For tonight, high pressure up over the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast, light variable winds there with flurries ending, but there'll still be some areas of low clouds and fog. Fair in the interior, risk of some showers along the eastern Alaska range, and rain spreads into the southeast coast, continues to spread northward, and rain back into Kodiak this evening, lasting through the night, periods of light rain. And for tomorrow, showers for Kodiak Island, cloudy with showers, especially central and northern panhandle, light rain, fog, and drizzle for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Cloudy or cooler with a chance of showers over mountainous terrain of the areas southern Alaska. Still sunny and warm up in the central and northern interior to the North Slope. Bering Sea, quiet under high pressure for the next couple of days. And showers, cloudier and cooler southern Alaska on Tuesday. Still pretty sunny in the central interior. Showers scattered across the southeast coast, more isolated down toward the south. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.